he said. "I'll go back to whatever job I was doing, working in an office or someplace, go out clubbing and get smashed like everyone else. No one would ever know when they're asking me to write a report or when they're dancing next to me, but I would. That'd be enough. I'll know, and you lot will too if you remember this, and I reckon you will." He wasn't wrong about that. Part 1. I'm convinced nostalgia's an illness. Winter 2015. If you took off your rose tints, I think you'd both see this film for what it is. I turned off the engine, but let the podcast continue, only half listening to the sound of my own voice coming through the car speakers. Over the road from where I'd parked, my parents' galley kitchen was lit up like a set awaiting actors. They'd hung strange paintings on the far wall and completely changed the colour scheme. The mustard paint was gone. Instead, some interior designer had detonated a magnolia bomb in there. My dashboard clock read 21:12. Was it too late to go in? Possibly. Hopefully. They were still up, for sure. Dad never left the lights on. OK, Zan, John, I think the time's come to decide whether Steven Spielberg and George Lucas's Orientalist classic Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom goes into the crusher. Orientalist classic, nice. So you're on the fence, Adeline? I switched off the stereo. I ought to go in. I'd only come home to Blythe for tomorrow's reunion, but it'd be impossible to relax without first finding out more about Mum's diagnosis. Dad had been agitated on the phone last week. All he'd managed to tell me was that there was something wrong with her lungs. When he'd given the phone to her so she could elaborate, Mum hung up without saying a word once he'd left the room. It was something terminal, it had to be. And if so, morally speaking, I needed to open up a dialogue again. End the stupid Cold War of silence we'd been fighting ever since my last visit. Even if it was just to make Dad's life easier. Yet I stayed in the car, fingering the keys dangling from the ignition. I'd expected this to be difficult, had been dreading it, in fact. But what I'd not expected was the anger that welled up once the lights of the M6 were behind me, and the roads became snakier in direct proportion to just how arse end of nowhere each passing village was. Blythe. Fucking Blythe. One lane of houses off a main road to somewhere better. A pub, an abandoned bus shelter, and nothing else for miles on either side. This was a place to hide from the world. Not a real part of it. A dormitory, and every bare field or barn or dead badger that had been illuminated in the headlights was a reminder of just how isolated I'd been here. If it hadn't been for the friends I'd made. God. I started the car. It wasn't worth it. I was losing myself, regressing already. Preparing comebacks for what Mum might potentially attack me for. Blue streak in my black hair, dark eye makeup, nose stud. No, I needed to just go and focus on the reunion. I'd head straight to the hotel and make notes on the podcast. It needed re-editing anyway. This cut made me sound too snarky, too irritable. The friction between the three of us perhaps seeping into my performance. It lacked the genuine affection for the films that had served Nostalgia Crush so well over the years. Besides, I could always try again on my way back to London. I dropped the handbrake. With my last glance up at the house, I noticed an actor wandering onto the illuminated set. Dad, shuffling across the kitchen. He was smaller than I remembered, and his hair, once the grey of pencil lead, was now white. It had been over a year.